Hey, this is Darien Cruz with Casas and Conversations. We have a really good episode today. Special guest, Dan Rochon. Dan's a very successful realtor as well as author. He's been featured on a lot of big platforms, the Nightly News with Brian Williams, the Today Show, CNBC, the Washington Post. Really happy to have him on. Looking forward to talking to him. He's got a great new book, Real Estate Evolution, which I'm currently reading. He's going to help us see how we can really be successful in this business. And there's a lot of great principles in here that I think are applicable, not just to realtors, but regardless of what business you're in, you can definitely put some of these key pieces in place to help you be more successful. And for those who are interested in just maybe getting into the real estate business or doing some investing, you'll definitely gain a lot of knowledge from this book and hopefully this conversation as well. So we're going to go ahead and bring Dan in. And we'll get a little bit more in terms of his bio when he comes in. Hey, Dan, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're super glad to have you. We just talked you up a bit, let everybody know a little bit about your history. But we're excited. I want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself to the listeners, tell them a little bit about your background and experience, and maybe touch on the book a little as well. So how did you get into this business, into the real estate business?
Oh my goodness, Dan. So thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful. So I guess it goes back to 2005. So 15 years ago, I got my license actually in 2007. Before 2007, I was a waiter at a high-end steakhouse in Washington, D.C. This is the place like where you would know all the, not all the names, right? But you know a lot of the names of the people that would come through the restaurant. Lobbyists, senators, Supreme Court justices, celebrities, etc.
Sure.
And so it was a really fun place to work. It wasn't my destiny. I didn't necessarily enjoy doing what I did. In fact, I didn't like doing what I did. And so around 2005, prior to that, I was an active alcoholic. I gave up drinking in 2005. And that was when I started making this transition in my life of looking for the next thing. And like really sitting there saying, well, I'm seeking significance. I'm seeking to be able to help other people, to be able to solve their problems, achieve their goals. And I know that I'm destined to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know how to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so I remember one day sitting around this place called Eagle Island, which was in the restaurant where the waiters would sort of hang out. We would like scoop butters into the butter patties there. And we were talking, and my friend Bill said to me, he's like, Dan, I know that you've been looking to do a business. Have you ever considered real estate sales? And that was sort of like when this light bulb struck on me. And I hadn't considered it previously, yet what I realized was, I was looking at all these franchises that would cost me $250,000 to $500,000 to get into. I could, for about $2,000 and a 60-hour curriculum, get my real estate license. The upside would be unlimited. And the entry level was relatively, small. And so that's how I initially got into real estate sales.
That's awesome. And it really is, in many respects, what you make of it. That's good that you mentioned the upside is, it's endless what you could do and how much you want to pursue it and what you focus on. One thing, I was just kind of getting into your book and I've listened to some of your other interviews as well. And you are really kind of an open book when it comes to your past and how you've been able to grow and grow your business, which is awesome. You don't really hold so much close to the vest, which is fantastic. And you mentioned your history and, having to make some serious changes in order to really progress forward. So it's awesome you were able to do that and keep that going and stay focused on it. So,
I want to mention something about that before you move on.
Sure.
One of the things that, because you mentioned about me being an open book, that's something that I believe is also allowed for me to have perceived success in real estate sales. Because one of the things that, like I really have this understanding that we're spiritual beings and I'm a human manifestation. And so for me to not share the struggles that I've had along the way, who cares? Because it's just like this spiritual thing inside of this human thing that I'm really, not so concerned about judgment. And I should point that out, not for any other reason, but because I think it would be useful for real estate agents to hear, because I feel the same way when I'm consulting with a client or a prospect, like I don't have necessarily that fear of what am I going to say. Now there's a lot of experience and training that goes into that as well, of course. Yet there are times where I may be in a new situation and it's like, who cares? It's just, it's when you look at life in that manner, at least for me, it's a lot for me to be able to, just embrace life in a manner that you're creating it by design.
Yeah. And definitely we all face challenges and obstacles and this career, any career, life in general. So it's nice to be able to go into it, with some confidence. You have the training in the background, you have that foundation to build on. It really makes it a little bit easier to deal with some of the things that come up. And there's a lot of points, in your book that you really address that do help kind of establish a nice foundation for whether you're a new agent, I think, whether you're maybe a little bit more established or extremely successful. There's still some really great key points that will be probably new to a lot of people. And to others, it's just a good reminder, what, I need to focus on this. I've kind of let that slide a little bit and maybe I need to readjust, to get the full potential of what I'm trying to do.
Sure.
And I kind of wanted to ask you about that. First of all, your book, it's The Real Estate Evolution. And it talks about, well, I'm going to let you tell us what it talks about, but tell us a little bit about C.P.I. What is C.P.I.? Why are we trying to get that? Why does that matter, particularly in the real estate business? If you can get into that a little bit.
Sure. So C.P.I. is consistent and predictable income. And for new agents, what we find is new agents are looking for the right way to do business.
Mm-hmm.
Seasoned agents, often maybe you had the best month that you've ever had and you're intending to replicate that. You may not be certain if you can replicate that month after month after month. And then for top producers, many top producers, mega agents would be in a position where they want to participate in the life that they're creating. Instead of, having all that great success 18 hours a day and, working 18 hours a day and not having to be able to, creating a lot of money, but not being able to enjoy it. That's, something that is missing for a lot of mega agents. And so it's depending on where you are in your career, there's a different, typical sort of thing that you're looking at. And having consistent C.P.I. or consistent predictable income also is more than just the income. It's also having a consistent predictable future, right? And having a future, that you could be able to participate in, that you could be able to enjoy. And confidence if you're that new agent, for example, confidence that you have a roadmap to be able to say, okay, well, how the heck do I do this, right? And so that's what C.P.I. is.
Yeah, that's great. And, one thing I wanted to touch on that you've talked about in the past too. Let's say you're a new agent, you're kind of starting out. Maybe you're a little younger or come from a different industry. You may not have a huge sphere, a huge social sphere, a huge sphere of influence. And on the other hand, if you're a really experienced agent and you've moved to a new market, you kind of might as well be a new agent in some respects. You have that experience, but you don't have that sphere developed yet either. What are some tips you might give to someone who's kind of in that position to be able to grow that sphere of influence and have that ability to reach out to new people?
Yeah, twofold. I'll say it, bluntly, and then I'll, expand on it a little bit, is develop a sphere. All right. Secondly is to find ways that you can get business today while you're developing that sphere. Okay, because a sphere is going to take time to be able to develop that. Like you can't go out today, and like the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, right, for example, teaches us that for every 144 people that are in our contact base, that we get a 12-to-2 ratio on a return on getting business throughout the year. Yeah, that takes 18 months. I don't think it actually says this in MREA. That our Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, rather, is that it takes 18 months. It does. Okay, so if I have 100 people or 144 people in my database today, then it's 18, and then I start communicating with them systematically. It's 18 months before I start getting return on it. Yeah. Okay, now the revised version saying a 10-to-1 return, right? So you just sort of flip your numbers to whatever it may be. So instead of a 12-to-2 ratio, it goes to a 10-to-1 ratio. The reason why they did 12-to-2 instead of a 6-to-1, just to sort of get in the weeds, is because one of those 12 would be somebody that's going to refer to you, and one of those 12 is going to be actually that person. All right. So getting back to your question, is that developing that sphere of influence takes a long time. Sure. I had a lean sphere of influence when I started in the business. because at the time, as I mentioned to you, I was working, 18 hours a day in the restaurant, and I wasn't living a healthy life a few years before then.
Sure.
And, I had to shed that unhealthy life, and I had to actually shed some friendships. Now, I still am friends with some of those people from that day, but it's a different type of friendship.
Yeah.
A lot of the friendships, my drinking buddies, like I had to shed those, right? And so I had to start almost from zero in regards to the sphere. So at the time, what we did to supplement that was we did a Craigslist ad campaign where I would I hired a bunch of virtual assistants, and we were putting new Craigslist ads on Craigslist every 10 minutes throughout the entire day, putting hundreds of ads on there. And I would have something like 500 or so people come to my website every single day.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was just from Craigslist. Now, Craigslist caught on to that, and they changed all the, the ways that they let people do that. So that became an unviable option. Today, you can do that same thing through Facebook.
Yeah.
And so for $2 a lead, or for $2 for an introduction to a prospective client, you can get in front of somebody for $2.
Yeah.
Now, here's the objection that most people say: "Well, they're crappy leads." Let me just sort of framework this.
Yeah.
They're crappy leads.
Yeah.
Now, get past it, get over it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what we know for the numbers is we know that 100 people that you meet in Facebook, you should have one closed piece of business today. And if you can put a system to follow up with them within the next 18 months, 3 to 5, including that one. So a total of 3 to 5 within 18 months.
Yeah.
If you can have a system to follow up with them. Most people can't. So let's just assume that you don't have that system to follow up with them, though you could do that as well. If it was just 100 leads to get to one closing, it's $200 for one closing.
Yeah.
So take whatever your average commission is in your marketplace and say, does it make sense for me to invest $200 into an advertising play to get a return of whatever your average gross commission
100%. Yeah, absolutely. If you sell the smallest home or the worst home in the history of your market center, you're probably still doing really well. So, I mean, there's absolutely no reason you wouldn't do that, for sure. Yeah, great. Yeah, that's some great advice. One of the other things too, let's say you've got an experienced agent, someone who's just killing it. They're doing great. What can they glean from your book and some of the information that you're putting out there to either bring them to the next level or refocus? What's some advice you would give someone who's really doing well at this point?
Okay. So if you break this down, you look at like a new agent. A new agent would be focused on lead generation and conversion.
Sure.
And that is true for any business owner. If you're a dentist and you have no patients, the first thing you need to do is go find some patients.
Yeah.
Okay. And then get them to hire you for your services. Once you get established and you figure out, okay, how do I get this book of business coming in? And you would do so through marketing and advertising. And the difference between the two of those is marketing costs you money. Between marketing and prospecting. So the difference between the two of those is marketing costs you money and prospecting costs you time. So now to get to your question is, for that seasoned agent, would get into organization building, right? So now it's like you figured out how to lead generate. Now that never and convert, that never goes away. Okay, we could dive deeper into that, whatever, but just to answer your question is, now it's about finding the support so that you can leverage through others to be able to focus on the 5 activities that are going to make you money, which is to lead generate, to convert the appointments, to go on appointments, to negotiate and script and role play.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when you're able to do that, and the closer you can get to that, and away from those 1,000 things of putting things in the MLS, developing website, the type of work that you could leverage out to somebody else, then now as a seasoned agent, you could get closer to having that paycheck January, February, March, April, May, every single month of the year. Because ultimately, that's the thing that challenges most agents, is that uncertainty when it comes typically November, December. Well, we're enjoying the family, but guess what? In January, it gets a little bit scary for some. Yeah. Right. And so that would be the thing for that seasoned agent, is to figure out, and we could dive deeper on this as well, but to figure out how do I leverage? How do I get some help here?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's so many things that don't require you specifically or a realtor's license specifically, a broker's license to handle that can free up a lot of time for agents that are really starting to get more business or that have a lot more business coming in. You mentioned, I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but your virtual assistants that you use, which I can attest to do a fantastic job. They're great communicators, very quick to respond. I've been communicating with some of your assistants as well. What do you say that, what are some of the benefits of doing that? Do you have any suggestions for maybe other agents out there in that position?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind if we did this? Let me answer the question of what a top producer would do, and then I can go deeper in all three of them.
Perfect. Yep.
Right. Excellent. And then that way we have sort of a framework that could maybe be most helpful. Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the question was, what would a top producer mega agent, what would they be focused on? So then you're looking at lead generation and conversion, organization building, leadership. Okay. So now when you're looking to say, okay, once we figure out how do we find a business, how do we convert it, now how do we build a structure around to be able to shed ourselves of all the busy work, shed ourselves of all the $10 an hour or $3 an hour hiring virtual assistants work. So now how do we lead? And that would be the answer to getting out of those 18-hour days, is how do you set yourself up so that if you develop that virtual assistant team, for example, how do I lead them?
Yeah.
And the definition of leadership that I choose to use is a leader teaches another how to think so that they can achieve the goals that they intend to achieve. And that's what a leader will be able to be able to help others. And that would be my definition of leadership.
Awesome. And that's great. And how would you say it applies maybe to some of some of those other tiers, some of like the newer agents, maybe the intermediate level, but some of the newer agents, a lot of it they're going to do themselves initially because they have the time. But what can they start to seeing things that they could maybe unload going down the road there?
All right. So let's walk this through. Let's assume that you figured out the lead generation piece. Okay. And that is a priority. And we can come back to this if you wish, but let's just assume that that's where we're starting right now. So then it's sitting there saying, how can I find help? My recommendation on how to find help would be to go virtual. All right. So I've got a course that can be found on the CPIcommunity.com that teaches people how to 10x their business at 1/10 the cost. Okay. And that course allows for you to be able to find and hire the right people to be able to serve your clients, to be able to exceed their expectations. Okay. And so we do so through a virtual staff. Now I'll explain where we are right now, where my sales team greetingsvirginia.com is. And then I'll explain to you like where you would start. The number one person that I have is on my team that I would say allows for us to be able to grow is I have one virtual assistant. Her full-time job is that of a hiring manager.
Oh, wow.
That's her job description. Okay. That's it. Now, for every 2 agents that join my sales team, we hire 4 inside sales agents. Okay. Wow. So then when you look at it for an agent, our intention is to generate 75% of the business for our agents. And then the agent generates 25% of their business.
Got you. Yeah.
Okay. And we do that by having that 2-to-1 ratio, inside sales agent versus agent. Okay. Yeah. And we also do so by having one dedicated virtual assistant. Her full-time job is to hire. Okay. Yeah. Now, on top of that, we've got Julene, and that's Alvia. So now on top of that, we've got Julene, who's our director of operations. Julene leads our sales team's operations virtually and locally. The Shefa, who's our runner, reports to Julene.
Okay.
And of course, the runner is going to be local. And Shefa's he is awesome, right?
Awesome.
And so, but Shefa he reports to Julene, not me.
Got you.
Okay, so he reports to Julene, who is based in the Philippines.
Wow.
Okay, and then from there we have a marketing team, and we have a client care team. Okay, so the client care team reports to Jolene, and they support the agents. The marketing team reports to Jolene and myself, just because I'm so involved in the marketing.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But they sort of like every morning we have that conversation, and I give them, okay, like here's the vision, here's how we fulfill it.
Yeah.
Here's some marketing, some copywriting, that type of stuff, and they still report the results back to Jolene.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's almost like the relationship is like a unilateral relationship between me and them, and then a bilateral relationship between Jolene and myself. Not to say that, listen, I care for every single one of our people.
Of course.
Right? So, but it's just like from an efficiency standard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's only so much time in the day. There's only so many people you can speak to and deal with, and issues you can address, and still handle your other responsibilities. So, that's a really good idea. I mean, I like how you have that structure. That's probably different than how a lot of teams or agencies are run, but that sounds like it would be extremely effective.
And if you look at it, there's no more than 5 people that report to one person.
Wow.
So you go back and you look at the military. The military is structured in a very specific way that the most amount of people in the military that report to one person are in the smallest unit of a squad.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what they call an army. I think, some of the other branches may call it something different, right?
Sure.
So in a squad would be the most amount of people, 8 to 10 people reporting to a squad leader. But there's only 4 squad leaders reporting to a company leader. And there's only 4 companies reporting to a battalion. There's only 4 battalions, typically sometimes 5, reporting to a brigade.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you look at that structure of that military structure, it is structured in that manner, in a very specific manner, a very specific way. Okay. And then when you're looking at large groups, for example, if you're building an organization that large, around 100 in the group segments.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could do that up to around 100 people where there's some sort of, like we know each other. We may not really, really know each other, but we know who each other are. And then outside of 100, then you split it into 2, because at that point you're going to not have familiarity with other people.
For sure. That makes total sense.
I'm diving deep. I want to go back to like, okay, I don't have a virtual assistant at all. What do I do?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, that could be like something that you could aspire to. And I really want to dive a little bit deeper on that in a bit in regards to the leadership of that to make that work. But right now, let's say I have no virtual assistant. What do I do? Well, first of all, be determined if you want to grow a business to hire a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
Okay. Like get clarity on that. The biggest objection that people have is twofold. One is I want control.
Yeah.
2 is I can't afford it. So let me take care of the can't afford it one first, because that's easier to do with virtual assistants.
Yep.
Can't afford it. $400 a month, you can hire a really high quality individual to be able to serve you and your clients. It can go up from there, right? But that could be a good base pay.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody in the Philippines, somebody that speaks English better than I do.
Yeah, and if you have one closing, that's paid for itself essentially. I mean, that's completely.
Well, absolutely, right. And so for $400, you can have a full-time support staff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
One person. Now, let's say you can't afford that. Let's say you don't know how to afford that. If you got 20 hours of dedicated work to your business for $200 a month, would that make sense?
Oh yeah, I would imagine
that's
so.
20 hours a week.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So if it really, really is a budget issue, I cannot afford $100 a week, then I encourage you to say, can you afford $50 a week for 20 hours of help?
Yeah.
And partner with an agent in your brokerage.
Yeah.
So you and I, let's say you and I, we can't, neither of us can afford it, but like, hey man, look, can we split the time for this person? And maybe we can actually even overlap some time where we get sort of an economies of scales and an efficiencies there. Yeah. Where they could do like some of your work and my work sort of simultaneously.
Yeah.
Right. So there could be like some efficiencies there as well. And would you mind, I'll pay $200, you pay $200, and that's $50 a week for each of us. Yeah. We get 20 hours support.
That's awesome.
All right. So that should, I hope, take care of the budget piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Dip into the ramen budget. It'll be fine.
right. All right. So now you've got the control, right? And so I get it. I want to be able to be in a place where I can control, because nobody cares. Nobody can do this as well as me. Okay. I want to go back to this book here.
Yep.
Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. If you're listening
Great.
to this on audio, this is the book that I'm holding up here, right?
Yep.
All right.
It's the red one.
It's the red one.
Gary Keller.
It says in this book, which was written years ago, which is a true statement today, which is nobody cares about you.
Yeah.
They care about the standard that you represent.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares about Dan Rochon. They care about the standard that I represent. My clients don't hire me because they love me, but they do. I mean, who would not love me, right?
Naturally, right? It's the beard. It's probably the beard.
Hey, it's got to be the beard.
That's it.
This is the
it's a secret weapon. That's right. It's a secret weapon.
All right. They hire me because they understand that the standards that I represent is that I exceed expectations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now, as long as I'm exceeding those clients' expectations, and in most cases, the staff could do a better job than I can. Okay, so for example, though I can pay attention to details when I need to,
yeah,
I prefer not to.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to look at the big picture. I prefer to be able to focus my skill set on consultation, on negotiation, on the things that truly take my skill.
Yeah.
I don't prefer to use my skill on filling in an MLS document or a listing agreement.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a good use of my time. So
Mm-hmm.
even if I have like this ultimate, I have to be in control of this, I could still leverage that out to a virtual assistant for them to fill out all the documents. And then I could take the time to review it to maintain that control that I see. Yeah. And then I'm the one that delivers it to the client. Like awesome. There's no problem with that. And then once I get comfortable and I realize that Jolene, who's my director of operations, she's going to do a better job of it than I can anyways.
Yeah.
Keep me out of it, right?
For sure.
That's
yeah, absolutely.
Evolution right there to be able to get to that level.
Awesome. Yeah. And I really think like specifically what you're talking about right now and delegating a lot of these responsibilities, these are principles and concepts that can be applied to any business. It doesn't, even if you're not a realtor, if you're listening, if you're not in real estate or you're not in here yet, whatever business you're in, these concepts are totally applicable. I mean, learning how to delegate responsibility to others is going to free up your time to focus on what you're best at and what's most lucrative for you in the business. So, I mean, definitely take that into account. See where you can apply that in your niche or your market, and I think you'll get great results for it.
Great.
One of the other things that you mentioned too in the book has to do with others singing your praises, getting referrals, getting reviews. This is something I also really believe strongly in, but I kind of want you to touch on why you feel that's so important. What are the benefits of that? I mean, I don't mind bragging a little bit, but it's better if somebody else can do it, right?
First of all, I want to acknowledge something. First, I want to acknowledge that it's an area of my business that I have not done as great of a job as a lot of the other areas of my business. All right. So I just want to, I want to be completely transparent. Yeah. And it's something that I recognize is one of the most vital, critical things to a business.
Yeah.
And it's not from a place of not providing extraordinary service. That's not the opportunity for me in my business. The opportunity for me in my business comes from the fact that by the time we get to closing, I'm relatively removed from the transaction, and I haven't been able to be effective as a leader to emphasize the importance of that within the team.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, you also have to understand that my level of observation of we've succeeded where we need to be and not where we need to be is at a high standard. Mm-hmm. Okay, I look back at the thousands of people that we've helped, and there's very, very few Zillow reviews that we have. It's very, very disproportionate.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that being said, particularly if you're more hands-on in your business, you should be able to actually maybe even pull it off a little bit even more effective than someone that's doing a high-level business, because you're in the trenches closer to that client.
Yeah.
There is one thing that we have implemented, which is the GV promise, which we ask up front to say, hey, when we fulfill on our promise, GV's Greetings Virginia, by the way, my sales team name, when we fulfill on our promise, would you, and we earn the opportunity for you to be able to recommend to us to others and to give us a testimonial. The only thing I'm going to ask for in return is for a positive testimony on Zillow.
That's awesome.
That's a strategy that everybody should implement today.
For sure. And yeah, and I think, reviews across the board, any platform you can get them on, it's definitely helpful. People search in a variety of ways. Zillow is obviously a huge machine right now. So that's something that consumers are using when they're looking for houses, whether it's Google, whether it's Yelp. You'll be shocked. When I initially started, I did ask for some reviews initially up front, and I got some, and it was great. Literally the first review, I think it was on Yelp that I received, because no other agents in that area were doing that. I was already in the top 10. I'd closed one sale.
That's awesome.
And so if somebody were searching for realtors, well, this guy's got 5 stars. It's only one review. And the top person only had like 8. So it's not, it's kind of, people aren't really focusing on that. But I search for things. I mean, that's how I choose a lot of times who I'm going to use. If I'm in an area that I'm not super familiar with and I don't have any personal contacts there, word of mouth is great. It's the best. But if I don't have it, I'm looking online. I'm going to check out the reviews and see who's got the better reviews. That's what I'm going with.
This morning, and I had a colleague of mine said that they had done a review on Amazon for the Real Estate Evolution book.
Awesome.
And so I opened up my phone to check it out and see what they said about me. And it's not there. I don't know why, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I read another review from somebody that bought the book from Amazon, Real Estate Evolution. And this review testimonial that this gentleman left me, I showed it to my wife and she teared up.
Wow. That's awesome.
And I looked at her, I said, sweetie, I succeeded with that book of what I wanted to do. Because I impacted one person.
Yeah.
And today, if I just impact one person, because what he said was so glowing and it was so inspirational and it was so positive about the way that I helped him in his life through the book.
Yeah.
I said, boom, done. I don't care if I sell another book ever again. I helped one person significantly that I don't know, and I still don't know who it was.
Wow.
Because his name was like a sort of like an acronym type name.
Gotcha.
I have no idea who it was. I tried to figure out who it was. I Googled it. No idea.
Wow.
Right?
That's
no
awesome.
idea who wrote that testimonial on me, which I think is actually sort of cooler than if I didn't know who it was.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I said, okay, that works. So now I think I'm looking at that from like sort of a backwards point of view of because you're asking like, how they benefit.
This is great.
It can also benefit the person receiving it, where it's like, oh my goodness, this validation of the services that I provided actually are significant, made a difference.
And why not? If that keeps you positive thinking and keeps you moving forward, that's great. Whenever you can get, who doesn't like a little bit of positive reinforcement nowadays, especially, there's not a ton of positivity around. So it feels good when you get something like that. Especially when you work hard.
If I may expand on this just a little bit. One of the things that I would suggest, even as much as reviews and testimonials, just get your name out there.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm going to tell you. So as I mentioned to you, now when I say I don't think we've done a good job with reviews, there's still hundreds of reviews out there.
It's awesome. Yeah.
When you looked at LinkedIn, Facebook, Zillow, et cetera, right? Like hundreds and hundreds actually. Zillow, we haven't done a great job, right? There's less than 50, I think, right? And so, but that's okay. When you look at, like, if you Google my name, Dan Rochon, you cannot help but to find me.
Yeah.
Okay. And online. And that is a very, very active effort of daily, of doing daily content.
Yes.
Once a week, I'll do videos. I will spend 30 minutes a week and I'll do videos. And guess who then edits those videos?
Yeah. Who's
my
that?
Virtual assistant.
Perfect. Exactly. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And then guess who posts those on Facebook?
Who would that be?
My virtual assistant.
Perfect. Yeah.
Right. So check this out. It takes me 30 minutes a week to do a significant amount of content where I'm doing 5 videos. Yeah. And then maybe another couple hours a week where I'm writing and I'm sharing that off. Right. But you don't necessarily need to do the writing. You could get away with it for 30 hours a week and $200 a month for that 20-hour week.
Totally.
And you could be significantly found online.
And it's amazing what you can do on a budget, even just when you're starting out, whether it's, your branding, your logo design. Honestly, you can find people online, a lot of apps that are out there where you can have, and they'll do a good job. You get a really nice logo for not paying a huge amount to start off. There's so many things you can do, and you may shape that a little bit more down the road, but getting yourself out there, going Facebook Live or Instagram Live or do video posts on YouTube, that's free. I mean, you can start doing that immediately. Start a podcast. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can definitely put yourself out there and be first on people's minds.
And even if you want to say, okay, I want to just like do a logo.
Yeah.
And you don't, go to Fiverr.
That's what I did mine when I started.
Go to
Fiverr.
Upwork.
Yeah.
Right. There's two places right there where you can go right now,
Totally.
and you can get somebody to to do a project for you. Project.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the quality is actually really good. A lot of those people check the reviews, but I mean, most of the time you can find someone who do excellent work. They'll do a couple drafts for you, give you different suggestions. If you go, I went in with a few ideas. Hey, I like this. I like that. I like this. What can you do? I mean, turnaround was unbelievable. Within a couple of days, I had everything I needed for my marketing materials. I mean, it was great. You were able to hit the ground running for very little investment with a lot of those things.
And look at the reviews. You just hit that. Look at the reviews. You'll know what you're getting.
Yeah, you will. Yeah. And you will. I mean, the rate of return, the higher you go, isn't quite as much as you would think. Once you get to a certain point, the difference isn't as huge. But the difference between $5 and $50, you'll know it.
Yeah.
You'll know that. But once you start getting to 200 and 300, it's not going to be the same difference as between the 5 and 50.
Absolutely.
So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking, and it'll get progressively better. And you'll most likely be happy with a lot of the results that you'll get from a lot of the people that have good reviews. And you answered one of the questions I had, which was, I'm thinking you did, which was why you wrote the book. But at least you told me you were happy about that, being able to help at least one person. So I'm assuming that was at least a part of it. Was there any other motivating factors that went into deciding to get into that?
It was an accident.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't mean to write the book. So backwards a couple of years. So when I got my license in 2007, in 2008, I was part of a Keller Williams Realty franchise, and I was a local franchise.
It's a scary time to start.
To go out of business.
Yeah, that was a scary time to choose to start getting into real estate.
Yeah,
Yeah. Big market crash. Why not? Let's jump in there.
Let's not pay attention. You know what? You have a choice. You can either run away from the storm, or you can run into the storm. Yeah. The storm's happening no matter what you do, the storm's happening.
Yeah.
And what I find is, I actually think that when there's hard times, for those that are willing to run into the storm, will receive so much better results than those running away. And here's an example of that. A year and a half after I bought after I got in real estate sales, I was able to have enough success to be able to position myself to invest into the brokerage that I was an agent of, and become the operating partner of that brokerage.
Yeah, which that was 18 months from when you actually started.
18 months of if you think of the economic times of the time, that you open it. They had this old fashioned thing. I don't know if you heard of them. It was called a newspaper.
Oh yeah, those.
Yeah.
It's like an analog website, right? It's like an analog website.
And you open up the newspaper, and it says worst economic times of all time.
Wow.
Foreclosure, distressed property, short sales. This is what the newspapers were saying. And I ran into the storm. And as a result, I was able to become an operating partner for the brokerage that I worked in, and then had an opportunity to serve the agents that were part of that brokerage for 10 years.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I sold the brokerage, and we did so from a place of going through some challenges.
Yeah.
So I went through some challenges, and I sold the brokerage and partnered. I stayed with Keller Williams, and I partnered with another operating partner, and became a very, very small investor into a couple other of his brokerages, and remained in the one that I was previously the operating partner of.
Nice.
So that was a time when I said, okay, it's time to sort of like, what's next in my journey? Mm-hmm. And I had done real estate sales throughout this entire process, yet not at the level of what I knew that I was destined to do. So I went and I called, I looked at my phone, and I had the chance to really develop some high-level relationships as an operating partner. And I called, a half a dozen or so of my connections, and, asked for their advice, their coaching, their mentorship. And one particular person had agreed to mentor me if I would take what I had learned throughout the years and document it and share it with others.
Yeah.
Now, I accepted it in exchange for the mentorship. I started doing it, and 3 months later, I realized that I thought I was writing like a bunch of ebooks. 3 months later, I realized, oh my goodness, there is no end in sight on this.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a book. Okay. So
Awesome.
that's how I started to write the book, right? It was from a place of really paying back to the industry, thinking I was writing a bunch of ebooks to say, the industry's been so kind to me. Let me take what I've learned and share it with others. And that was the foundation of it. Yet then it evolved into a full-fledged 275 instruction manual on how to do business, on how to be the very best version of yourself, and sharing about my personal journey throughout the way, the success and the failures, and what I learned from the learning opportunities.
For sure. Yeah. So everything just kind of escalated, got out of control, and became a book.
It did. And then I had to figure out, like, oh my goodness, like, how do you publish a book? Where do you get an editor? How do you do this? How do you do that? So it was a lot of learning that I did. And I learned it. And I think, at some point in my life, I'll write a second book. I'm not ready for that today. It will become easier the second time, because it's just like anything else. Once you learn, like right now, I think really where I'm spending my time is really just on developing the team that of Reading Virginia, my sales team. Yeah. And helping them to achieve their goals, and helping others through, we have the C.P.I community, which is Consistent Predictable Income Community. And you can find us online on Facebook, the C.P.I community. We've got a great active group there, and just helping out other agents is really what I'm focused on now. And in the future, I probably will do another book to help the more general public, but that's where I am today.
That's awesome. And we will also, by the way, definitely have links to, Dan Rochon's websites, the book, where you can find him on social media. For those who are, listening to the audio version of the podcast, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you'll have that information in the description. And obviously, if you're on YouTube, just look down below in the description. You're going to see all the links. They will definitely be able to find you and find that information, which is, I think, hugely beneficial. Obviously, in your first 18 months, to go from being a new real estate agent to, becoming owner of the agency that you were working with, you obviously had a very solid first year and a half. But for most agents, I was going to ask you, how would your career maybe have been different if you had all of this information? Because some of this was still acquired, I imagine, over time, with experience, learning what works and what doesn't. Exactly. Yeah. So how might you have done things a little differently, or how could you have even done any better, if you'd had this in the beginning?
All I can say is the agents that join my network, my sales network, that implement these systems, almost immediately start doing transactions around 3 a month.
Wow.
That's okay. So
yeah, for sure.
Right. So I don't know what it would be like, like for me to have the foundation. I don't really actually, consider that too often. It's really about, focusing on where I am today, right? Yet looking backwards, there definitely can be a journey for people to follow. Like there can be a pathway for people to follow. For sure. Right? Yeah, that's great. So whether it's reading the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, reading Shift, reading The One Thing, reading Real Estate Evolution, these are all books that will help you. And it's really about just because each of these books gives you a snapshot in time for where you are in your business. Yeah. Right. Like the first thing I did when I got my license was I went and I met with a lady named Karen, who was like the broker team leader of the local franchising. And I said to her, I said, Karen, I'm going to go away for the next 2 months and you won't see me. And then I'm going to come back and you're going to see a lot of me. And I'll never forget that conversation. And what I did during those 2 months was I studied models. That's all I did. Yeah. I took my first 2 months of business. I was still waiting tables at that time. Okay. And every single waking hour that I had outside of, and even waiting business, I had flashcards, and I just studied models. Yeah. Okay. Because I understood that if somebody else can do something, if yes, then all I need to figure out is how. Yeah. If yes, then how. And so simple equation. You can prove to me environment, given a similar set of resources, that another person can achieve something that is extraordinary. I just need to figure out how. And when I figure out how, then I just emulate. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. If you see someone that has those results, how do you duplicate that? And that's what you need. That's fantastic. Success leaves clues, and so does
yeah.
failure, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's great info. Great advice actually too for a lot of agents. This is, particularly in this book, they're going to see that methodology, the step-by-steps, 10 steps, I guess, as the book says, 10 steps on how to generate the consistent predictable income. So if they're able to follow those steps, they should be able to replicate that and have good results. And in a relatively quick amount of time. We're talking about, building an entire business from zero, essentially when you're first starting. But you can, it can be done, and it's been proven that it can be done.
Yeah.
So there are certain steps you might want to follow to get the most and the best results on what you're putting into it.
I think it would take 3 years.
Makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So right now, I say I am a little bit less than 2 years in my journey of rebuilding my sales network.
Okay.
Okay. And when I sold the brokerage and I, got into like full-time sales,
mm-hmm.
then at that point it was like, okay, I had a 3-year plan. And the first part of that 3-year plan was to build an organization.
Yeah.
So now I have that organization in place. And about 6 months ago, it was, so we have, you divide a sales team into 3 segments. You've got the operations,
mm-hmm.
you've got the lead generation, and you've got the sales.
Yeah.
And I focused on it in that order starting 2 years ago of, let me get the operations up and running. Then when I get the operations, let me get the lead generation. That's inside sales agents for me. Then let me get the sales agents up and running. And then I started that last leg about 6 months ago of hiring sales agents into the organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think we're still about a year and a few months away from that 3-year mark. And within that time period, I would expect that we're going to hit a level that will be sustainable through time. And then it will also be, won't take as much effort from me personally.
Awesome. Yeah. It definitely seems like you've got, now what the systems are that work and how to get that moving. So I would imagine, you're so much better positioned than most people in terms of how to get that thing started, because you've seen how to do it before. I mean, you literally wrote a book on it. So, so you definitely know what's required in order to build that and to keep those things going. Tons of great information. If we have someone listening right now to this podcast, 1 or 2 just key points that you really think you would want them to grasp from your book. If it's just 1 or 2 things, what would you want those things to be?
We didn't talk too much in our conversation about the foundation, so we
mm-hmm.
sort of fast forwarded. Before we even talk about lead generation, lead conversion, organization building, leadership, it's about being the very best version of yourself possible and living to the greatness of your design.
Awesome.
Okay. And so about a third of the book is really talking about how you can get the best out of life and giving you specific tactics of something called a self-coaching model, for example, of the programming leads to the thoughts lead to the feelings lead to the actions lead to the results, and the results go back to your programming. Right. Yeah. So in other words, the programming of, am I surrounding myself with high-minded people? Am I reading? Am I listening to podcasts? Am I exercising? Yeah. Am I eating Cheetos? Am I watching Netflix? Yeah. Am I smoking cigars? Am I drinking beer?
Mm-hmm.
None of this is bad. None of this is wrong.
Yeah.
None of it is good. It's just having an understanding of the reality of the environment that you put yourself into. Am I meditating? Am I doing affirmations? We're all doing affirmations. Am I choosing which affirmations that I do? So that starts with the program. And that's actually the hack of that closed loop, because if you can envision, if you're listening to this, a loop where the programming leads like a clock to the right to the thoughts, and it comes
mm-hmm.
all the way back to the program. And it's like, well, what do I do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me explain it, and then I'll give you the specific, here's what you do about it. So let's say that I'm surrounding myself with high-minded people and I have great thoughts, right? Then I'm going to have great feelings. And if I feel really, really great about myself, confident, loving, energetic, then the actions that I take are going to reflect that.
Yeah.
And when the actions that I take that reflect that energy, I'm going to have the results that are going to be really inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
When I have those results, it feeds back into the programming. So that's the way that works. In the same way, if I have crappy thoughts, et cetera, right? It's a closed loop.
Yeah.
So then, like, if it's a closed loop, how do you hack into it? You hack into it through the programming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you want to have better results, it starts with your environment. It starts with how are you programming your brain.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned to you that we're going to have affirmations whether we like it or not. Well, guess what? If I stub my toe and I'm like, man, I'm a dummy, that is an affirmation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If
I stub my toe and I say, that hurts, and I'm going to not do that again, that is also an affirmation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're both affirmations, right? Now, you can't always, like, sometimes you may stub your toe and say, hey, I'm a dummy, and that's okay. That's your first thought.
Yeah.
You can stop it right there and choose to reprogram it in that moment when you catch yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Learn from your mistakes.
So that would be to sit there and say the tangible, what I'd want somebody to take away from the book is understanding that there is a system and a model for life.
Yeah.
And when you start, before you even get to lead generation, it's about being the best version of yourself possible. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
Okay. And you are in control of your destiny. You are in control of who you are. You're in control of your outcome. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that there may be something external, such as right now it's raining. It's literally raining outside where I'm standing right now.
Yeah.
I cannot control that it's raining outside. I can control if I go and put an umbrella or use an umbrella. That's what I can control.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes we focus on the rain rather than focusing on the umbrella.
Sure. Sure.
Okay. And that's where you get into that mindset of, oh, but I can't do that because it's raining.
Yeah.
Say, well, what could you do in the face of rain, still achieve your result despite the rain? What can you control?
Yeah.
I can put some galoshes on and put my little rain jacket on and get my umbrella out there.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of outside factors, there's only so much. I mean, you're going to face certain obstacles. You're going to have certain challenges. A lot of them may be unexpected, but how do you respond? You know, how do you, what action can you take to still meet your goals and what it is that you want to do? So that's awesome. Very good advice. One thing I wanted to do here, I was just going to share for those who are watching the video version, we'll describe as well, where they can get the book. So we'll see here. One second. Let's make this a little full screen so everyone can see. This is the 10-step guide to C.P.I. This is the book, The Real Estate Evolution. Anyone who's interested, definitely pick up the book. You can get it from therealestateevolution.com. I'm going to put the link below, obviously, if you're watching the video on YouTube, if you like to get your podcast there. If you're listening to it, it's going to be in the description on any platform you're listening on. You also have your greetingsvirginia.com website, and that is your team, correct?
Yeah, so I've got the Greetings Virginia Sales Network, which is greetingsvirginia.com. That's our consumer-facing website. And then we have the C.P.I. community, which is the website that we share with agents to put I do a lot of interviews and we share the content where if somebody wants to eavesdrop on some really, really high-minded conversations, they can do so at the CPIcommunity.com.
Perfect. Fantastic. Look, it was a lot of great information today. I don't want to keep you forever. I know you're busy. We're getting towards the max of the time that we thought we were going to be at, but thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you can definitely come back and do it again. Maybe you'll write another book. You can definitely come back if you do that. Or if you just have some other points you want to share, I'm sure the listeners will be more than happy to listen. I know I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. Thanks to all the listeners for tuning in to the Casas and Conversations podcast. Definitely subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously click like and subscribe below. And check out the book. Get the book. It'll definitely be worth your time. Tons of good information. Thanks so much to Dan Rochon for coming on. And I hope that we can do it again really soon.
My pleasure.
Awesome.